What up, homies? We're going to review this video right here, and I'm going to talk to you about why I think there's a problem in Canada with politics. And you're going to see a lot of old people, maybe some young people that are too young to be there, in fact, haven't had enough life lessons. Maybe they're getting spoon fed what to do next from their parents. We have no idea, but they aren't the ones we want to govern us. And in fact, the real question would be, do we need to be governed?
There's snow on the ground and it's pretty cold.
Let's find out if these are the right people to do it. And if they're not, then should we just govern ourselves instead of paying all this money to people who have done a really bad job?
Capital and Canadians from coast to coast are putting up Christmas trees, but the finance minister is stuck in fantasy land, somehow still thinks it's fall. She's weeks behind on delivering the fall economic statement to this House and to Canadians. The parliamentary budget officer says that this minister blew past her deficit reduction targets, adding more inflationary spending and crippling debt that Canadians will have to pay. But we don't know for sure because she's nowhere to be found. So when will the finance minister tell Canadians just how much money she spent?
The Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, we look forward to answering our colleagues' questions, but I do feel it's important to recognize the gravity of this day. It is the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women, and 35 years ago, 14 women's lives were cut short in a brutal act of violence at l'École Polytechnique, killed simply because they were women. Gender-based violence must not be tolerated in this country, and we all have a role to play in ending it.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Madam Speaker, Conservatives on this side of the House stand in solidarity with all of the victims' families on this tragic day. My question, however, was about the finance minister and the fact that she is hiding today. She's hiding. She hasn't hidden the fact that she's doubled Canada's debt. She gave us the highest inflation in 40 years, and she delivered the lowest projected growth of any advanced economy. She's trying to hide the truth for Canadians. So I will ask once again, if she doesn't want to come clean, can anybody on that side of the House tell us exactly how much Canada's deficit is this year?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Madam Speaker, we'll put our record up against the Conservatives any day of the week and twice on Sundays. Let me quote from a former governor of the Bank of Canada, David Dodge. He said, because it was obsessively focused on reducing the federal deficit over fiscal years 2011 and 12 through 2015, the Harper government unnecessarily contributed to a slower, rather more muted recovery. So while Conservatives slowed down our recovery, we have accelerated our post-pandemic recovery and are now on track to have the highest growth rate in the G7. That's in addition to Canadian work.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Madam Speaker, if that minister wants to put his money where his mouth is, he should call a carbon tax election and let Canadians decide. The finance minister, however, is going to have to find another job after the next election, and maybe she'll find out that you can't turn in your work that's been overdue. It's something that we learn in grade school, and she must have skipped that. Our government lost control of our borders. They've lost control of immigration. They've clearly lost control of the deficit too, and they're trying to cover up their tracks. So I will ask again, for those in the back, and I will say it slower, what is Canada's deficit this year?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Let's just review, Madam Speaker, the Conservative track record on affordability. So they will not support feeding hungry kids
okay, baby?
healthy meals at school. 400,000 more kids, they say, no, we don't want to feed you. They will not support a GST break over the holidays on food, toys, and other essentials over the holidays. They say, no, we won't support a GST cut for Canadians. They also won't lift a finger to fight climate change, which is cited in the report as being the greatest driver of food price inflation. When will they get on side with Canadians and actually support?
The Honourable Member for Lévis-le-Binière.
5 or 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna.
Madam Speaker, the Liberals have not even tabled an economic statement this fall. The parliamentary budget officer was very clear.
Streamer
Our
headquarters, we haven't been in yet.
2023-24 financial audits have not even been tabled. It's a historic lack of transparency in the history of our country. Canadians deserve to know how high the deficit is for this fiscal year ending on March 31st, 2024.
Merci, Madame Présidente. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for the question. As he very well knows, our government has been investing to increase the number of jobs throughout the country. And today, there's some good news. There are 51,000 new jobs for Canadians.
It's going to help grow the economy. It's going to help transition into a modern economy. It's going to build the homes Canadians need. And importantly, provide the support to the families who are dealing with a higher cost of living. It's a shame that the Conservatives, every step of the way, oppose these measures.
L'honorable député de Lévis-Lapinière.
The honourable member. Madam Speaker, twice this government voted to keep this bad government in place. And yet, this government doesn't even seem to be able to cap its inflationary deficit at $40 billion, which is leading to an increase of $800 in grocery costs for the average family in 2025. Which means that now children are having to ask Santa for basic necessities of life. Canadians want to know, how high will this inflationary deficit be? The Honourable Minister.
C'est difficile.
Honestly, it's very difficult to accept this question when this very week the member had an opportunity to vote to reduce taxes on food, but he voted against that. He will have in the near future another opportunity to vote on programs for school lunch programs throughout the country. I wonder if he will vote against that once again. Madam Speaker, in this House, we need to support families and communities. But at every possible opportunity, the Conservative Party votes against that. The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Madam Speaker, the National Assembly of Quebec has unanimously asked the federal government to repeal the religious exception in the Criminal Code, which enables hate speech to be proffered on the basis of faith. Religion is no excuse for hate. We might think that everyone agrees about that, but on Wednesday, the Liberals blocked a motion to defend that simple principle. And yet, the Minister of Justice says that he wants to fight hate speech. So what does he have to say to his colleagues who want the federal government to protect religious extremists who are inciting violence? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Inaudible for the interpreter. Madam Speaker, what I can say is that on this side of the House, we are for any effort to fight hate, especially the increase in anti-Semitism that we're seeing in Quebec and elsewhere in Canada. We want to work together to improve a piece of legislation that's already in this House. Bill C-63, the Online Harms Act, we're very happy to work with the Bloc to improve and pass that bill. The Honourable Member. Well, the National Assembly of Quebec wants to get rid of this religious exception, but in Ottawa, there are some MPs who want to protect hate speech and the religious exception. In Quebec, we're defending social peace and solidarity, but in Ottawa, some want to sow division and violence. In Quebec, we defend secularism, but in Ottawa, some people are defending the right to commit crimes in the name of religion. This is ridiculous. Religion is no excuse for crimes. What is so hard to understand about that? The Honourable Minister. Madam Speaker, on this side of the House, we have a national strategy to fight hate, as well as Bill C-63, which addresses online radicalization, where many of these problems begin. And then after that online radicalization, we often see real-life hate and crimes. We also know that this bill, our online harms bill, will address the same section of the criminal code as the one referenced by the Bloc Québécois bill, and we're happy to work with them on this.
De Burnaby Sud.
Liberals and Conservatives have a choice. Will they support Canadians in real cost of living relief, Or will they just keep letting Canadians get ripped off? The NDP is forcing a vote in this House to permanently scrap the GST off of all family essentials and have the rebate be extended to seniors and students and people with disabilities. It's time for Canadians to come first, not the profits of ultra-rich corporations. So will the government support our plan, the NDP plan to help Canadians put food on the table and keep a roof over their head?
I just want to say I introduced the honourable member as a different riding, so it's New Westminster Burnaby. I'll correct that in the record. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and it's great to see the NDP getting behind a tax break for Canadians over the holidays with on essential goods at the grocery store, kids' toys, Christmas trees, everything that will make this holiday season a little bit more merry and bright for Canadians. It's too bad the Conservatives won't stand up to do the same. Especially given the fact that they campaigned on this in the last election. It's truly the height of hypocrisy, Madam Speaker. I'm not sure when Conservatives will get on board with actually supporting Canadians.
The honourable for Nanaimo, Ladysmith.
Madam Speaker, everyone should be able to afford a good home and to save for a rainy day. But people in Nanaimo, Ladysmith are struggling. They need permanent, not temporary relief. The Conservatives are a threat to this relief for those who need it most. They only want to get tax breaks for billionaires while everyday Canadians pay the price. And the Liberals have clearly let Canadians down. Will the Liberals give people in Nanaimo, Ladysmith the break they need to permanently remove GST off essentials? Yes or no?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
If we don't
Well,
remove
it's
the
clear
GST
that
right
the
now,
Liberal
we're in
Party
so
of
much more
Canada
trouble than
and
people
our
understand.
government believes in giving Canadians a break over the holidays. That relief will certainly save families
The
money
GST
over
should
the
be
holidays.
removed
Much needed
forever.
relief after the struggles that many workers and Canadians have gone through
Taxes are
over the
burdening
inflationary
Canadians
pressures
at a
that
level
they've
never
felt over many months.
experienced.
It's too bad that the Conservative
And
Party
all
of
the
Canada
economists
just
in
will not
Canada
step
are
up and
corrupt.
support
They don't
Canadians.
actually tell
They've
you the
obsessively
truth about
harped
how
in
much
this House
taxes
about
we're
giving
paying. We
Canadians
tax
tax
at
breaks,
the
and
end
then
of the year, we
when the
tax on
opportunity
gas, we
arises,
tax
they
on
will not
food, we
step up
tax
to
on
actually support Canadians.
everything. Because
The
they don't
Honourable
really care.
Niagara Falls.
Rain,
Speaker,
you
after
know,
9 years
our
of this
property
failed
tax went
NDP
up
Liberal
huge here
government,
in
more and more
Winnipeg.
Canadians are going hungry. They see the
Everything
Liberal
goes up. You
2-month
know, our
tax
gas
trick
bill,
for what it is.
the
Nothing more than a lump of coal
percentage
in
is
their
going up
Christmas
for how
stockings.
much
1
they're
million
charging
people
us
are
for gas
visiting a
and
food bank
electricity. You
each
know,
month
this year,
in
everything.
Ontario and in Niagara
And we
Falls.
are already
120
at the top
families
of what
per
we can
day
afford
on average
in
are
Canada.
visiting
Some
Project
people
Share, our
are
local
way
food bank,
past that
because
4 or
they
5
cannot
years ago.
afford groceries. When will
There's
this
no
NDP
relief
Liberal
for
government
people
axe the carbon
if you
tax
didn't grow
to
up
provide
cheating
the
in lines,
permanent
stealing
broad-based
and
tax
being
relief
corrupt in
Canadians
business. You
need
can't
and
make a
deserve?
living right now. The only people that have money
The Honourable
in
Minister.
a big house are
Well, I've got some good
lobbyists.
news to share with
The
that
most
member
corrupt
because
people
just
in
a few
Canada. If you
weeks
know a
ago,
lobbyist,
we
shame
signed
on
an
you.
agreement
Shame on
with
you.
the province of Ontario for our national school food program.
They
This
ruined
means
Canada.
an additional
Lobbyists work for the
160,000
corporations,
kids this school year
and they're given
will have
more
access to
money than you could
healthy
ever
food
understand.
at
So that way,
school.
when they get up in
This is
front of
help
these
for parents
politicians, they
in a
can say,
stressful
hey,
and
backdoor
affordable,
your vote
expensive
if you
time.
make sure that this
And
corporation
it
doesn't pay as
ensures
much
that
taxes
kids
as
can focus on
it
being
should.
kids and can focus on learning. Wouldn't the Conservatives get inside and
They'll
support
backdoor your
these measures
vacations
for
for life
families?
in Costa
Member for
Rica.
Niagara Falls.
Speaker, a 2-month Liberal tax trick
You
does
just pay
not
for the
provide
flight
the
and they'll pay for your
broad-based
food and
permanent tax
accommodations when you
relief
get here.
Canadians need. And sadly,
They've been
they
doing
plan
this
to
for
raise the carbon
this
tax
since the day
again
one.
next year.
Always.
1 in 7
There's
residents in
nobody
my
that
community
doesn't
of Niagara
backdoor
Falls
stuff.
have
These
visited
people
Project
are
Share. Almost
legit bad.
5,000 residents
In
visited
Manitoba,
for the
there was
first time last year
crown land
alone.
deals that were
Canadians need our help.
horribly
They
done
need
here in
permanent
Manitoba
broad-based tax
20,
relief.
25
When will
years
this
ago.
government finally call
And there
a
was the
carbon
Crocus
tax
Fund.
election so we can scrap
We've been
tax?
in Manitoba, we've been nothing but good here in Manitoba.
I'd like to remind that member that the last time that they were in government, that the poverty rate for children was 16%.
It's like, can you get a better
Madam
haircut
Speaker.
so you can
We
come on
have
stage
lifted
and
hundreds
stand
of
in front of
thousands of
Canada and
kids
talk
out
on
of
TV
poverty.
on the shittiest
And
channel
the
on
single most
television?
effective measure in doing that is the Canada Child Benefit, ensuring
These people
parents have
are not
support
what we
each
want
and
to be
every
governing
month to be
us.
able to afford the essentials for their
I don't know
family.
anybody that looks
And
like
guess
these
who voted
people.
against it? Guess who asked to dissolve it, Madam Speaker? The Conservatives.
Member for Calgary Centre.
Shame on
Madam Madam Speaker, the first thing
Shame.
the government has to get right is the
Shame
basics
on
for
you.
Canadians. That's food and shelter. After 9 years of this NDP Liberal government, these costs are way up. Housing costs have
Shame.
doubled. Even more basic food costs continue to escalate,
Shame.
and food bank usage is up 90%. Let them eat cake is not an effective strategy. Escalating deficits are the root cause of inflation, and this government still does not
Looks
get
like they
that.
got Pierre too.
Reality is
I didn't
landing
say
on the
anything yet,
plates.
but man,
of
Pierre looks
Canadians.
totally
When will
different,
this
yo.
government
He looks
take a lesson
100%
and
not like
stop
Pierre.
its economic
And I'm just like, whoa. They actually got Pierre?
My colleague points to food and shelter as pressure points for Canadian households. I actually agree, but let's actually look at what the different parties are proposing to do
let's
about
not.
it. First, on food, he's complaining about the high price when he literally is voting against a tax break on food. He's literally
It's a
opposing a
7%
national school
tax
food
break,
program,
it's
which is
nothing.
helping hungry kids eat. Madam Speaker, when it comes to
Canadians right now need a $50,000 interest-free loan that they isn't repayable. To the people who can afford to pay it back, they should. If you don't meet a certain criteria of making a certain amount of money, people shouldn't even be asking you politely for money right now. All Canadians are in debt so bad, we either dismantle every corporation in Canada that's enslaved all Canadians and have them, we recoup all money and give back to every Canadian in Canada right now. And these corporations can start from scratch because they have billion-dollar homes, right? I want all their savings given back to Canadians right now, or we dismantle corporations in Canada and we work for ourselves from now on.